Call this meeting of the Lawton City Council, September 13th, 2022 to order. Call a roll, please. Oh, I'm sorry. We're going to Charles is going to do the invocation, and then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Please stand for the prayer. Father, we just thank you for this day. We thank you because in your word in Ephesians 6:10 through 20, it talks about putting on the whole armor of God. But at the end it says, after done all, stand. And that's what we're doing today, Father. We're standing in you. And each council member and woman would stand in you in their wards and for the people. During the time of David, David realized that after Samuel had anointed him as king, that the Lord had anointed him for the people, by the people. And so that's what we stand for today, Father, as we move this city forward, that we're standing with the people and for them. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Call a roll, please.
Hampton, Fortenbaugh, Johnson, Warren, Hankins, Harris, Chapman, Burke.
Mayor Booker asked me to provide this proclamation, National Hispanic Heritage Month. Whereas each year Americans observe National Hispanic Heritage Month from September 15th to October 15th by celebrating the histories, cultures, and contributions of American citizens whose ancestors came from Spain, Mexico, the Caribbean, and Central and South America. And whereas the observation started in 1968 as Hispanic Heritage Week under President Lyndon Johnson and was expanded by President Ronald Reagan in 1988 to cover a 30-day period starting September 15th and ending on October 15th, it was enacted into law August 17th, 1988 on the approval of Public Law 100-402. And whereas during Hispanic Heritage Month, we take the opportunity to honor all Americans of Hispanic descent and to acknowledge their past and ongoing contributions to the success and growth of our nation. Hispanic Americans are the largest minority group in the United States today, and generations of Hispanic Americans have consistently helped make our country strong and prosperous. And whereas this is this year's theme, Uno Dos, Inclusivity for a Stronger Nation, encourages us to ensure that all voices are represented and welcomed to help build stronger communities and stronger nation. And whereas Hispanic Heritage Month is celebrated in many ways with events such as parades, art exhibitions, concerts, and traditional Hispanic food fairs, now thereto I, Stan Booker, Mayor, City of Lawton, do hereby recognize September 15th to October 15th, 2022 as Hispanic Heritage Month, and encourage all residents of the Lawton-Fort Sill community to celebrate our unique and vibrant history and recommit ourselves to a shared future of healthy, peaceful, safe, and sustainable communities for all. In witness whereto, I hereunto set my hand and cause the official seal of the City of Lawton, Oklahoma, to be affixed hereto this 13th day of September 2022. Stan Booker, Mayor of Lawton.
Co-Chair Mayor Randy Warren, on behalf of the Race Relations Commission of Lawton, Oklahoma, we accept this proclamation. And by me being a descendant of the Hispanic culture, we'd like for you to take this time out from the September 15th to October 15th to learn about the achievement that they have made, that we've made, and the accomplishments, and learn about their culture, food, and just do quizzes and test yourself on Google on the things you may know. This will be time of us to learn about each other. Thank you.
We'll start with reports. Down on this end.
I want to make sure everyone knows that there's going to be some forums about the parks, and so I want everyone that can to attend those forums. And I guess that you can certainly come to your ward. They'll be broke down in different wards so that you can express your thoughts about what should be done with that particular park. So your input is important, and that makes you part of the process. Ward 1, that I'm the council member for, will be September 22nd at 5:30 here in the city auditorium. So be sure and put that on your calendars and come and help us make those decisions.
Yes, I just wanted to congratulate United Way, the agency here, that for their gala Saturday night, they raised more money than they've ever raised that will go directly back into our community, helping many, many agencies. It was a wonderful event and a great job, and I congratulate them on that.
Thank you. On September 26th, which is on Monday at 7 p.m., the Meadowbrook Neighborhood Watch will have an ice cream social at Fred Bentley Park. So if you like ice cream, I welcome you to enjoy that. And thank you, Councilwoman Hankins, about the parks. Ward 3 Parks Public Forum will be Thursday, October the 6th. I'll remind everyone and put that on my City Council Facebook page. It's very important. We need your input. Thank you.
I just wanted to first congratulate Law Enhancement Trust and the city staff, specifically Corey, who worked so hard on the Trash Off event. We are a finalist once again for the state award. For the biggest trash off event statewide. So we were a runner-up last year, but we're going to win it this year, according to Corey. So he just gave me that heads up. So thank you, the staff, for all the hard work on that.
I've just got two things. One is my parks meeting for Ward 8 will be the 13th of October in this facility. I believe it's at 5:30. And the second thing is, anyone out there that's got a youth at their house that is interested in league sports, or they themselves are interested in league sports, just go to playlawton.com and check out what's available right now. And if there's something there, there's something that you want to participate in that's not there currently, be sure and drop them a note. There's a place where you can send them an email, because they're very interested in generating new leagues of different types of sports. So be sure and stop in there and let them know. Mr. Hampton.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I wanted to mention that if you haven't been to the farmers market, then take some time out on Saturday to go there. It is really starting to be a great venue for our city, and I think you'll enjoy it. Pick up some fresh fruit and whatnot. There are just so many things in Lawton, I think, that we're moving towards becoming more and more a community on, and I'm just really excited about that. And I want to just encourage all the citizens, if you have an issue of any kind or any input that you want for the city, we city council members are there, and we'll take those calls and make sure that your voices are being heard. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Mr. Fortenbaugh.
I'm not sure how to say this, and I mean it in a very positive way, so I hope I don't make anybody mad. But Hispanic Heritage Month, a good thing a person could do is spend 30 minutes to an hour on Google or a reliable source and look at Hispanic culture. I'm primarily familiar with Mexico. I know a lot of people down there. I go down there all the time. But when you compare the two to Americans versus, say, Mexicans, it is so different. It's amazing. The biggest thing is their families are so tight-knit, and they tend to stay together, and they tend to visit each other all of the time and have celebrations, and they help each other out. It's nothing I've hardly ever seen in America, at least not in my family. In America, we tend to be high-strung, and that has to be done at 9:02 a.m. or else. And a Mexican person would probably say, it will get done when I'm ready to get it done. And it drives Americans crazy. They really believe in social harmony. They don't have the Facebook stuff like we do. I think and the last thing I'll say that is really striking that impresses upon me, the minimum wage in Mexico is about $8 a day. And they have to live and survive on that and raise family. Their stuff is somewhat cheaper, but it's a lot challenging. They don't have all of the things that we have. So it's worth studying that.
Yes, ma'am.
Just wanted to remind everyone that this Saturday at Elmer Thomas Park, it's going to be the Cops and Kids Picnic. It's going to be from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. So it's always a really fun, neat, really exciting picnic, so bring your kiddos out.
Yes, sir. Anything from Fort Sill?
There we go. Got to be smarter than your equipment. No, just as always, really appreciate the support from the community. I think the big thing we're looking forward to is taking part in the international festival that's coming up, and then Fort Sill will be hosting I know we've offset it this year, and a big event we'll have this fall will be our Oktoberfest, starting on the 30th of September, and then the second day on the 1st at the Patriot Club there in the middle of Post. And we're going to start getting some information out on that to the council and to the members, and also out publicly in the community, and look forward to seeing everybody. So thank you.
Good deal. That brings us to the audience participation portion of today's meeting. Anyone having an item of business to present to the City Council that does not appear on the agenda, please come forward at this time. Yes, ma'am. We'll need your name and address.
Yes. Good afternoon. I am Paula Bowen, and I am a former commissioner for Ward 7 City Planning and CIP, and I come on behalf of one of our citizens that has an issue that he'd like to bring to your attention regarding a permit that was revoked at his residence for pouring of concrete. The residence is 2615 Northwest Pollard. The permit was issued and then later revoked 3 days after. There was no reason stating why the permit was revoked, and I'd like to implore you to look into the matter. The person that sent the letter was Charlotte Brown. She did not state why the permit was being revoked, only that he needed to get a survey. He secured the said survey to the tune of $440 from Landmark Survey, and it proved that the concrete that was poured on his property was in fact on his property. And so I would like to implore you again to look into the matter. I have all of the documentation for your inspection, and we would like to see maybe perhaps a compensation for this survey that had to be done, and that's all I have for you.
Thank you very much. If you would like to talk to Janet right over here, she can give you a card, and she can discuss that with you and explain what needs to be done, what the issue was.
Okay. All right, we thank you. I thank you for your time.
Anyone else? Seeing no one, we'll move on to the consent agenda. I did want to pull item number 3, the Vargas portion. Well, Vargas also. Is there anyone else that would like to pull any items?
Move to approve the consent agenda. Oh, sorry.
I don't know what Jay knows, but we need to pull number 6, number 10, and number 11 also.
Okay.
Sir, I thought we were ready for action. Any others?
We're pulling number 9 as well.
So we've got 6, 9, 10, and 11,
You want 3 as well, right?
and 3, without the Wade issue.
So we want to pull the Mueller and the Vargas?
Correct.
Okay. I move to approve the,
I'm sorry. We're going to strike number 9, not pull it.
That's what I thought.
okay. Okay, anything else? Okay. I move to approve the consent agenda with the exceptions of item number 3. Like to pull the Vargas and the Mueller. What is it? Yes. Yes, yes.
Just one moment.
Just one moment. And pull item number 6, striking item number 9, pull item 10, and pull item 11.
I've got a motion. I'll second that. I've got a motion and a second. Please vote.
Did you say strike 7? I'm sorry.
Strike 9.
Strike 9. Do you need to,
I need strike 7, please.
Okay, so 7, and strike item number 7. Will you second that, sir?
I will
amend my second. I've got a amended motion and an amended second. Call the roll, please. Or vote, I'm sorry. My vote is yes. And somebody hasn't voted. Okay, there we go. That motion passed 8-0. So that brings us to item number 3. Mr. Vargas, if you would like to come forward and address the council regarding your claim.
Would you like him to go first, sir?
That might be more expedient.
Yes, sir.
I never done this over here, so I don't know what to do. But what my problem is that I had a duplex, okay? I was here, I got the letter. I went to Oklahoma City to see my kids, because they live over there, my grandkids. While I was over there, I got ill. They sent me to the VA hospital. I was there for a long time with VA in different places. I got dementia too at that time. So I spent a lot of times over there. Okay. After that, when I came back, I went downstairs to the place, license and permit or something like that. I talked to the people that work over there, and they say, your duplex is already scheduled for demolition or demolished or whatever. Okay, so I say, well, if I pay you the money that you already paying for that demolition, yeah, I want to fix the duplex. They say no can do. So okay, so you can do that. That's what I can do. But then from there. One time I was there at Daisy Christensen, he's my realtor, and she was over there with me before she went to Honduras. We were talking all that, and when she left, next morning, they bring they got a big hook on it and demolish the duplex. So that's all I say, okay? And the thing is, I was in the hospital all the time. My kids were there. I forgot about the letter, and that's what happened.
Does council want to hear from staff or? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. So this started in March 25th, 2021, when Neighborhood Services went out. We're talking about a duplex that's in the unit block of Northwest 24th Street, there just off of Gore. And a notice of hearing was sent out on May the 4th after Neighborhood Services went out and assessed the properties and saw the condition that they were in addition to mailing by certified mail something to Mr. Vargas, it was posted on the residence, and also it was published in the newspaper. So those three avenues of notice were provided. On May the 18th, just a little short while after that, this council held a public hearing and passed Resolution 2021-82. And declared the structures dilapidated, detrimental to the health, safety, or welfare of the community, a blighting influence, and a public nuisance. After that, on May the 24th, notice of dilapidation and lien was filed with the court clerk, Comanche County Clerk. And then on May the 25th, Neighborhood Services mailed another letter to Mr. Vargas advising him that the public hearing was held and the outcome of it. He had 30 days to challenge the resolution. That time passed without any action by Mr. Vargas. And then, now that was in May of 2021. And then in June of 2022, so we're talking about over a year later, that's when the permit was issued to a local demo company to go out and tear down the duplexes because of their condition. And it wasn't until June of 2022 when those demolition machines were on site to do that job, that workers were sent to address the conditions of the property. And so at that point it was too late. They were demoed in accordance with the resolution passed by the council, and that's how we got here today.
Thank you.
Chris, can I ask a question? Right here. I just want to make sure, the original complaint said that the houses were on 34th Street, but they were actually on 24th. We tore down the right houses, right?
I saw the same thing, yes,
Okay.
sir. We tore down the right duplex.
And Mr. Vargas, this has been going on from March of last year until June of this year.
Second, sir.
This issue has been going on since March of last year until June of this year, over a year. Were you in the hospital? When were you in the hospital? When were you in the hospital?
I was when they gave me the letter, okay, from that time, I was in the hospital, still on the doctor supervision.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, that way everyone can hear you.
Yeah, I was in the hospital. Well, like I say, I went to see my kids, and that's when I got problems with my blood pressure. So they put me in the hospital, and the VA hospital. I got copy of my medical record. From the time I left to the time I came back, okay, I got it in my car. If you people want to look at it?
No.
There's no problem.
We don't need your record, sir.
Well,
I'm just trying to get a feel for how long you were actually gone or could have missed any of the
I
process.
was gone for a long time.
Months?
Almost 8 months to a year, something like that.
Okay.
Mr. Vargas, I just wanted to say that, number one, I feel terrible that you didn't know. I mean, obviously you got your first notice, as you said. And, you know, what we do is once you get that, and if you come to us and you give us, notice that you're going to work on it, then we wouldn't, even if it was on the D&D, it gave you the opportunity.
As soon as I came back, my friend told me, hey, you need to go over there and to get a permit or something like that. So I came over here and get the permit. But the people that work in the office, they say, no way, Jose.
Once you pass a certain time period, then it's no longer once it's on the D&D, you have so long to do
I
it.
told them that, hey, if you spend some money on whatever for the machine to put it, before they demolish it, they haven't demolished that, they haven't seen it yet.
Right.
I told them, hey, I pay for whatever they use the machine, and then you let me finish the building.
Right.
Give me a permit and I do the building.
Well,
They say-
I'm sorry that it happened, but, I think they just did everything they could to try to contact you with notices in the newspaper, everything else, and I'm sorry you're in the hospital and sick. I wish we had known, but we didn't, and, so we just really didn't have much choice. We just have a process we have to follow that are state laws and local laws, and then we followed those, and so I'm very, very sorry.
Well, I guess, when you go look for a person, you look for a thief, you go anywhere to look for the thief. But if somebody got ill or something like that, like I did, okay, nobody looked for me.
Well, I think we sent you notices and did other
No.
things, so
I mean-
I really feel sorry. I mean,
Yeah, I
wish there
understand,
was-
I understand what you're saying, sir.
I'm
but,
sorry.
If somebody will go and ask the neighbors, one of my neighbors over there, they would tell you what happened,
But we just
And
don't know.
that's something that you can think about it. So when next time, somebody disappeared, don't make an assumption that, hey, he's negligent or something like that. He just, thing happens.
Thank you, sir.
And like it happened to me.
We appreciate it very much that you came forward, and we're glad you're doing better, though.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. I move that we deny the claim for Vargas.
I've got a motion and a second. Please vote. My vote is yes, and that motion passed 8-0. That brings us to the Mueller portion.
And this claim stems from an incident that occurred November 10th of 2021. The claim was filed timely in June, on June 24th of 2022. It has to do with the water main break that took place near Mr. Mueller's office there, 1301 Northwest 63rd. So the city water distribution received a water main break notification. Street was flooding there in the 6200 block of Oak. The call came in around just before 9 o'clock a.m. and water distribution arrived on scene at 9:50. They shut like they do on all cases, they shut the water main down. They called in emergency underground locates and the underground lines were marked prior to being excavated. They waited about 3 hours. They were on scene about 3 hours before they began excavation at 1 o'clock. What they did not know is that there was an electrical line that was feeding the sign in front of Dr. Mueller's office there. And when the crew went to tend to the main, they cut the line. And there's that issue. And then there was also some asphalt that was damaged. And so the question is the damage, obviously the damage to the line was caused by city crew in addressing the water main break, but then was some damage to the asphalt there, the result of city workers and city activities or the water line break. One thing that the city noted is that there were some large, heavy landscaping rocks that were placed in the utility easement right on top of or near the area where the water line broke. And those would have had to have been placed there with large machinery, and the city, that's not something the city did, as far as we know. And so if there was damage to the line, that might have caused the water line break, and it also might have caused any damage to the area there at the edge of the pavement. So under Oklahoma law, when we have the right as a municipality to operate a waterworks system, and when we're dealing with an emergency water line break, then there's no liability for the city when we have to address that emergency line break. And so, there's no indication here that our crew was negligent in any way, that they carried on in the repair of the water main in a negligent way, or carried themselves in such a way on the property there in the easement that would have damaged Dr. Mueller's asphalt there in a negligent way. And so we're recommending denial of the claim.
Chris, did they not check to see if there was an electrical line and other kinds of things that go in an easement?
So I put a picture in on the memo to kind of, I don't know if that came out very well, just kind of so you could see the location, the proximity of the area that was excavated in relation to the sign. They do, and even though under Oklahoma law, under the Underground Franchise Protection Act, they have to call in. And if you don't call in on a non-emergency situation and you end up damaging something, then you're certainly liable. But even though this was an emergency situation, the city crew did call in Okie Dig, the Okie 811 number. They come out and do their emergency locates. And but technically, they could have dug without doing that because of the emergency situation. And but even still, they went ahead and did make that notification. So this particular line was not something that was marked, even though emergency locates were requested. Dr. Mueller did not have that information in the system, and our office checked, and a private individual could call and put a private line like that that's feeding an electrical sign like that in the system. It wasn't on there, and we were on scene for 3 hours. The office, this is a Wednesday, presumably the office was open. They would have seen the machinery out there if they could have came out there and said, hey, by the way, we've got an electrical line running right there. But so that's how that came about.
I know the sign has been there for a long time when Dr. Wheatley was there. Now, and getting back to those boulders, are you saying the weight of boulders can cause a water line break? Is that what you were saying?
What I'm suggesting is that there could be an issue of causation. So as far as the city being negligent, there could be an issue of causation of the original water line break, like assuming that the damage to the asphalt was done by an underground water leak, or the trucks. It is possible that the placement of those large landscaping rocks above the area that actually where the water break occurred could have contributed to that situation, and that's all I'm implying by that.
I just want to say that even if they call for locates, if it's a private installed line, that's not going to show up in locates. Unless they've given it to the city and said, here's where it is, here's the area where it's put in, we're never going to know that. And, you know, Okie's not going to know that. They're going to come and they're going to look for water line, sewer line, electric, things like that we've put into our area that is ours. And that area is where that water line is. That is city. That's the easement. That's where we're able to work. And you're not supposed to put anything in that. Whether they meant to and it's been there for 100 years, I mean, I see it, I understand. And sometimes you have to go across an easement. You just hope you go to the city and tell them, I need to cross that easement. It's what you really should do. So for future, if anybody else is going to install something like that, go to the city and say, can I please go across this easement? And they'll usually say, okay, but then they're going to mark that and know that that easement was already there. So I don't see how the city staff can be held liable for something they have no idea that's there, and neither did Okie. And so and you know, the boulders, boulders aren't going to cause no water line to break, but, you know, unless they pound them up and down, I guess, maybe. But I've been doing construction too long, so I can't imagine that. But I do see that, you know, people, citizens, us, me, we've done stuff like that and put stuff in easements where we shouldn't. And it's a shame, but it is what it is.
Yes, sir.
Chris, what was the damage to the asphalt? What was he claiming? You didn't interrupt a driveway, did you?
I'm sorry, what?
It didn't interrupt a driveway?
No, it's my understanding on the edge there where the grass meets the asphalt that there was some defects caused in the edge where the asphalt right there ends and meets the grass.
Okay.
Is that in Easton as well?
I don't know the answer to that right offhand, but that's right. That is the easement where it meets the asphalt. So
There's some more pictures out there that I saw from Dr. Mueller, and it looks like the water washed out underneath the asphalt and then took away any stability that it had. I was troubled about the discussion about the rocks, because I don't really see how that could affect something so far down in the ground. The rocks were put there apparently a long time ago because people were making a shortcut across his parking lot, across his grass, and then, I don't know why, it's not that much of a shortcut. I'd like to make a motion to table this until the next meeting, and that's my motion. The reason why is, Chris, I'd like to send you some very specific questions that I have and that others have given me, so that we can kind of bring this back and get all of the information on it and make sure, and just like somebody, I think Jay just asked, well, was that in the easement? We don't know. It'd be nice, I know you don't have it, but somebody has a map that shows
Sure.
where everything is, or if there was any permits for that line to be there, or I don't know. Just
Okay.
I'd like to get the rest of the info, because in the pictures, it wasn't just a little lake, it was a new pond that we made on the west side. That's my
I'll
motion.
second that motion.
Got a motion and a second. Please vote.
Randy, I had one question. The electrical line ran right under the, where the water line was, is that right?
It's our understanding the electrical line was on top, basically on top of the water main.
Okay, the reason I'm asking that, it just seems obscure. I mean, I don't see a light pole or anything there, so it's kind of an odd place for that to be, but just a comment. Okay, thank you.
Has everybody voted? I tried. It says I did, but I'm going to vote yes. That motion passed for table that item 8-0. That brings us to item number 6. Who was wanting to address that?
I can address that. I'm probably the one that pulled that item. This item deals with the council's, well, it deals with engineering and architectural selection process with the city manager, but also as it relates to the council's engineering committee. I would like to table this one until the next meeting so that council committee can consider this, discuss with the city manager, and make a recommendation.
Second the motion.
I've got a motion and a second to table. Please vote. That motion, I vote yes, and that motion passes 7-0. That brings us to item number 10. Consider improving a resolution amending, do we need to read that? We don't need to read it, do we? Okay. Who wants to speak? You want to speak on this, Councilman Fortenbaugh, or? Okay.
Yeah, I was looking at this item, and the charging, Christine, is it charging for someone that wants an event, or people that are just going to, people use this stuff all the time.
Yeah, we get requests for tournament-type events.
Yes.
So if you wanted to reserve a court or a field, then you go through the process of actually reserving that and paying for the city
And
services.
so what we're talking is exclusive use where they can use it.
It's a reservation, yeah.
Where they can use it, which means that everybody else is excluded during that
Right,
time
yeah,
period.
if they
when
wanted
rent
to
it.
close the court or a field for, a tournament use where, they're reserving it, that's what this would be.
Okay, I was concerned about the policing of that. So basically, it's for events that are specific to the use of that
Yeah,
facility.
just
Okay,
like
thank
the
you.
athletic fields currently are. We get requests for tennis courts, and so we just decided just to add the word courts there, so it would cover fields and courts on the athletic side.
Were the fees raised, or are they pretty much
The
the same
fees
as
were
they
raised back when all the rest of the fees were raised. There's no fees
Okay.
changes associated with this. This is
In
just
this,
adding
no
the
fee
word
changes
court.
this. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Move to approve.
I move to approve number 10.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. Please vote. My vote is yes. That motion was approved 7-0. That brings us to item number 11.
So, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I think my question was related to what Mr. Hampton just said. So it sounds like in the past, it was a free-for-all. We weren't really charging for use of facilities out there for group activities, exclusive use. So now that's what we're going to start doing here.
Yeah, and some of these got dropped off during the fee changes, and we get requests quite often for these items, and so as they come up, we've just been kind of compiling the list, and we got a pretty good list. We brought that back together, brought it back here for your consideration, just so, we're matching what we've been doing.
I move to approve.
Got a motion and a second. Please vote. My vote is yes, and that item passed 7-0. That brings us to the first business item. Consider discussing the status of the repairs needed at the Museum of the Great Plains and provide direction to staff.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem and Council, I've asked for this to be brought to the attention of the council. I'm on the board of the museum, and I know there have been some HVAC and some ongoing water leaks there, and we're getting ready to have an accreditation group coming in November, and I just wanted some updates on what kind of a direction we can take in assuming or calculating the cost of some of those repairs to get them actually fixed, whether it be next year or in the months to come, and have some kind of a plan. So thank you for bringing this to my attention, okay, for me.
Yeah, I can speak on behalf of the ongoing HVAC issues. The museum is not immune to failure to maintain buildings that the city owns. Unfortunately, you know, there's several HVACs through the city that are in need of repair. We've been made aware of the ones at the museum. Our HVAC contractor, I believe, has done a very good job trying to Band-Aid and piece things together and keep them operational at some level. There are some state statute type regulations that are changing regarding to HVAC. I'm sure Councilman Burke can speak to that a lot better than I. And so we are unable at this time to get a good estimate on what it would take to replace because the manufacturers and stuff like that are a little hesitant to provide cost going very far into the future. But our HVAC contractor is doing what he can to, you know, make it work with what we've got and the pieces that he can actually get a hold of. So.
Can I make a suggestion that we go out for bids to try to see? Now, I do agree with you totally that we're in the worst part of HVAC I've ever been in. I've been in it 25 years. And so people that are having units go out, you better get ready. But it's hard to find equipment now, any kind of equipment. It's hard to find parts. It's hard to get anything done. I can't hire people because they don't want to work. I don't know. So all I'm saying is that, you know, we really need to try to get something, bigger equipment. The bigger the equipment, the harder it is to find right now. So it's really, you know, but they have to have air conditioning. I mean, it's a beautiful facility. We don't want to have an accreditation issue and have issues where we are in trouble at the library. So, I mean, at the museum. So
yeah.
That library too. I mean, you can add all those places, right?
Just
So
add to the
any
list.
place you want to mention.
Yeah. And I will let you know, the museum is under the blanket citywide contract. And so, you know, it'd have to be the blessing of the city attorney's office to be able to go outside of that contract. Because our HVAC contractor has, you know, responded and replied.
But obviously, we're not getting it repaired. So if we need to go out for bids for new equipment, I would think we need to do that.
Mr. Hampton?
Thank you. Do you know how long, does anyone know how long we've been having this air conditioning problem at the museum?
It's been some time. I know it was something that I was fortunate to
Do
inherit.
you know how long
I've
it's been?
asked Bart McClenny to be here. Bart, do you want to come up and help us with some of these?
I was just wondering how long, I know it's no one's fault, but it certainly is good to take an inventory of how long.
Yes.
Because that is one of our, one of the key things for tourism and people visiting our city. And I think that it should be a priority. But do you know how long that's you've been without air conditioning?
I've been at the museum for 11 years, and we've had problems for most of that time with our air conditioners. But you have to keep in mind they were first installed, I believe, in 1996. So most of our units are 26 years old at this point. So
That is way beyond the life expectancy of a heating air.
That's
Specifically, a commercial unit that runs every day. Your home, you can open a window and call it good. At a commercial building, that's not the way that works. So we as a city need to come up with a policy on replacing equipment in better fashion at the time, and before we get to the end of the lifespan, you know, we just have to have replacement policies. And same thing we do with vehicles now. Finally, after all these years, we got a vehicle replacement policy. And we're not driving the 2002 vehicles around all the time anymore. So I agree with you, it's been forever, and the equipment's very old, just like it was at the McMahon. It's been horrible. It's horrible.
Yeah, I think that I go to a meeting there once a month, and it was quite uncomfortable. I can't, you know, children are there. I'm just kind of weighing in on this situation because children are there and family members, and it's a joy to see those people there. But I'm thinking that somehow we need to prioritize this and make sure that this doesn't happen again, as Councilman Burke was saying. Thank you.
Kind of like a rolling stock for air conditioners. As far as accreditation goes, I doubt we're going to get this fixed before it's time for that. But perhaps, like Mr. Burke said, we'll say, hey, you know what? We know what's wrong. Here's how much it's going to cost. We've identified the funding. We're waiting because everybody else is a year for new equipment, whatever. But we're on top of it, and it's going to be made well.
Well, and the other issue, of course, is the water leaks. I know that the last meeting I went to, in the lobby, they had a blue tarp on the floor. You know, that doesn't look very appealing when you're walking in there, and they do such a great job, and I know you're having success at the museum financially also. So I know that Dwayne, they caulked or did something around the windows. Can you speak to that for me?
So the roof on the museum was replaced several years ago. It's not very old. We did go out and actually have the contractor come back. They looked at that. My understanding was that it wasn't the roof that was leaking, but it was the seals under the windows. That's a sawtooth roof with windows that line each one of those areas. In all honesty, it's probably not the best design for a museum based on the sunlight, as we understand, that could damage the exhibits and things of that nature. So one of the things that we were looking at is, do we go in and remove the windows and put just a solid wall across there? But building maintenance was directed to go back over there. They did find some gaps underneath the window seals that was allowing the water to come in, and they were directed to patch those holes. It's a temporary fix. It probably will not hold over the long term, but it'll at least slow some of it down until we can come up with a better solution.
Well, then at some point, can we direct staff to be looking at that for the future of the museum?
We have had, I know Joe is here, and he may be able to talk a little bit about it. I think did you go and meet with the engineers or the architecture that over there?
Excuse me for a second. No, I wasn't actually there when they met, but there was some preliminary discussion on what needed to be done, and I think to kind of cut to the chase, it's the windows are leaking, the facade, it's installed incorrectly. The museum doesn't want them there anyway. We just need to come up with a plan of removing them, redoing every one of those, and just fix it once and for all and make it waterproof and make it how the museum wants it. But so we need to prepare a plan and a cost and get it budgeted and get it in the process and get it going.
Can you start on that plan so?
I will. We'll get started on see what we need to do, what costs we're looking at, and that sort of. We'll get it started and budgeted.
Thank you, council.
We need a motion.
Mayor Pro Tem, I am not sure how much we should be discussing this if it wasn't really on the thing, but I'd like to know when it started leaking, because this building, you know, how long have we had this? When did it first start leaking? Because it seems like since inception.
So I first volunteered at the museum, I believe, in 1991.
Okay.
So even though I came back as a paid employee for the first time, or for a full-time paid employee in 2011, I've kept up with the museum since 91. When the new addition was complete in 96, I remember being told by staff at the time that it's not even open to the public yet, and we're already setting out buckets to catch leaks in the new part of the building. What I've learned recently, we have someone associated with the museum that has done paid work for us, and that person offered to go up on the roof and look at it very carefully and offer us an opinion. You probably haven't seen that information, Mr. Rourke, I can get that to you.
Think
But
about it.
their opinion, okay, their opinion was that the windows are a contributing factor in that they're catching the rain when it hits them and channeling it downward because they're that vertical rooftop window, but that it's actually probably the insulation material, the EFOS material that is beneath the windowsill and above the rooftop that may be what is being penetrated and causing leaks within the building. I would hate for us, the last thing I heard was what was just said, that, removing the windows might fix the problem. I would hate for us to remove the windows or block the windows and still have the problem if in fact it's the wall beneath it that's leaking. And it appears that perhaps different from the architectural drawings, some flashing, there were 3 pieces of flashing, one internal. That internal flashing never seems to have been installed in the first place, and at least a second piece of counter flashing is no longer there that may have been there at one point. So we're missing 3 things that should have been built that may not have been built, which would then explain a lot of things, at least to me. I couldn't understand how certain things we've done over the years affected the leaks, but with this latest analysis, it all makes sense.
Mr. Hampton?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. These kind of things are pretty simple. Councilman Burke knows that. It's trying to get an estimate on what the problem is to get a cost. Once you get the cost, then we can bring it to council, and then we look for the money to try to fix this. Again, I want to weigh in on this. This is for the visitors that are visiting our city and going into that museum and seeing buckets on the floor. I went in there and saw this myself. Buckets on the floor, tarps over fire engines. I mean, it's kind of embarrassing that we're not really taking care of this. And I think that we could get an RFP through the attorney and then possibly at that point kind of get this thing moving, if I understand how that works.
Can I clear up one point? This gentleman's absolutely correct. What I meant, it is all of the above. Everybody that's looked at it, it's the whole system. The wall system, the window system, it's all constructed incorrectly. It's not just the windows that need to be replaced.
Well, Joe, we just need somebody that goes in there and looks at that whole system.
That whole partition needs reconstructed.
And redoes it to give us a price on that.
Well,
correct, that's what we're looking at.
Probably what we need to do, legal, is someone agenda an item for the next meeting or the meeting after that and direct staff to do an RFP. And we can't do anything today. So.
But we definitely need to send direction to the city management that this is important, not only in this building, but in every city building, that we start doing a complete overhaul of looking at all of them and figuring out where are we.
Any other comments?
Just one, Mayor Pro Tem. I just want to say that I think Joe had a good idea in that before we rush to an RFP, we need to look at it, figure out exactly what repairs are required, and then we'll push the RFP forward. Not to delay the process any, but we don't want to rush to failure. Like we talked about, we don't want to put all of our eggs in the fix the roof basket and then we find out that it's the windows leaking.
Who are you suggesting to do that? Internally?
I'll take
externally?
care of that. I'll get everything put together how we need to get taken care of.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on. Item number 22, consider receiving a presentation from the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife regarding prairie dog colonies, their ecological impact on the community, why healthy populations are important, and why non-lethal methods of removal are not effective in some scenarios.
I just introduced Kurt. His last name is a little tricky for me. So, Mr. Kurt from the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. My name is Kurt Kuklinski. It's not easy to say. Formatting my presentation got off a little bit there. You can't see my name well, but I'm here representing the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation. I work in the role of the Wildlife Diversity and Wildlife Research Supervisor for the Department of Wildlife. I'd like to offer my appreciation for this opportunity to speak and share some information about black-tailed prairie dogs. Okay, cool. Thank you. I wanted to start with just a little bit of history about prairie dogs. Start by saying that the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation is the state agency that retains the statutory authority to regulate the state's fish and wildlife under Title 800. And under this auspice, we do issue permits for black-tailed prairie dog control and to control those colonies when overpopulation causes damage to property and damage to land. So specifically with the background and the history with the city of Lawton, there's been a lot of effort and collaboration, cooperation between my department and the city dating back many years. In the 90s and early 2000s, there was actually some relocation efforts done. Some of those prairie dogs were captured and moved to the National Wildlife Refuge. More recently, getting closer to current day, 2017 and 18, looking back through my documents, the state did issue prairie dog control permits, 90-day permits in each of those cases in 2017 and 2018 to the city. One other thing I'd like to make note of is it's important to understand that the history of this in the city of Lawton, although there have been prairie dog issues, the city has always maintained and always designated some portion of the state parks as retention for prairie dogs, so no kill zones. So this isn't asking for or requesting a complete culling of the entire population. There's always been maintained an area of no kill. An example of this is from the 2017 permit. This is Elmer Thomas Park. There's a couple of hashed areas in yellow that were retained prairie dog treatment in the form of zinc phosphide pellets generally is put out, except in those areas where they're zoned as no-kill areas. So I thought it was important just to make everybody aware that although we are issuing a permit for prairie dog control, this is not a complete eradication. This is just to control the population. Just as I referenced earlier, in 2017, a permit was issued, a 90-day permit, roughly in the same time of year in the fall of 2017. Again, in 2018, another permit was issued from the Wildlife Department for prairie dog control, and kind of in that same time frame. This one was maybe early December, so we're coming up to that time of year when we typically do issue these permits. Seasonally, it works better to control these prairie dogs in the fall and the winter. The question might be asked, is there justification to go through this process for control? Speaking biologically, ecologically, that's my expertise, my background. This is a justified move. Number one, there's a lack of natural predators to control these prairie dog populations, things like coyotes, foxes, badgers, raptors, hawks, owls. In a high use area like these city parks, you're not going to have those predators very, very commonly in the area to control prairie dogs. So they don't have a natural predator to keep their populations in check. Once they start to get into this overpopulation mode, you get into a situation where you're resource limited, and now you have excessive resource consumption that leads to things like suffering and starvation of the population, and it can lead to a pretty precipitous crash at some point. One other thing when you're dealing with overpopulation of these prairie dog colonies is there is a susceptibility of these animals to a sylvatic plague, which is basically the human equivalent would be a bubonic plague. That plague is transmitted, the vector of transmission is fleas, and once these plagues hit prairie dog colonies, it's basically a total wipeout of the colony. So the longer you sustain a population that's in excess of where it should be, when you're dealing with overpopulation, now you're introducing the possibility or the potential of a plague taking over that colony and really causing some damage. And again, part of the justification for this is prairie dogs are destructive to property, and My understanding is currently that's being contained within the city properties, but it does jeopardize adjacent properties as well. There have been non-lethal, and I have that in quotations, efforts in the past to move these and translocate prairie dogs to reduce the population locally. There's a couple of hurdles that have to be overcome to go to those routes, to take that plan of action. Number one, the most important thing is it's hard to find a landowner that's willing to receive the prairie dogs. So you have to find a willing partner to say, okay, you can take the prairie dogs from the city of Lawton property and put them on my property. Whether that's public entity, private entity, whatever, it's people aren't clamoring to accept prairie dogs and potentially have a problem of their own. So that's always the first hurdle to overcome. Second hurdle would be it takes a lot of effort, intensive, it's laborious work. It takes a lot of people and a lot of effort to actually trap these things and get them off the property. Third, it's very stressful to the animals. The process of doing this removal would be pumping, water with a surfactant or a soapy substance into the burrows and then capturing the prairie dogs as they leave the burrows. Very highly labor intensive. And I do make a note here, it's not non-lethal in all cases. I mean, there's some prairie dogs that get caught down there, they drown in the water. It's not an easy activity. And then again, once you remove these prairie dogs and translocate them somewhere else, the local population will continue to grow and it continues to expand even after this removal. So just some of the background on the other option being non-lethal. Kind of in conclusion here, the city has applied for a permit to cull black-tailed prairie dog populations on 3 city properties. ODWC intends to issue this permit. We feel like there was a lot of thought and effort put into this permit application. Biologically and ecologically, we see the validity of this, and we're willing to support the city by issuing a permit, and that would be in the form of a 90-day permit issued here sometime in the near future to cull this population going into the winter. I'm happy to entertain any questions if y'all have that for me.
Mr. Burke. Well, I've been here too long because I remember in 2008 we were going through this. We've soaked them out, we've sucked them out, we've ran them out, we've yelled in the holes, we've done everything. We saw Fox out there and we were super happy. Maybe he's going to take some, but it didn't work. We actually got some gathered up and we took them out to the wildlife refuge, and the predators took care of them. They were gone within no time. It seemed like they were gone. My daughter was very upset. But I want you to know it's been an ongoing thing for us. But my question to you is, Kurt, is we are given, and tell me if I'm wrong in this, but my understanding is, because I've worked with Parks and Rec on this, because I've worked in that park, seems like 100 years now, the stuff that we're given to put in the holes to eradicate and take care of them is not what ODOT is able to use, for example, the state uses. Because when the state comes in and they put their poison down, I mean, they're gone. They're gone. I mean, all along the interstate I-44, you can see it. I mean, it's instant. That you don't see one head popping out of a hole. Now, ours has been a little different because we'll see them come out and jump around, and it's horrible, right? Because they're being poisoned and they try to get out. And so I've been there when they're like flopping around on top of the ground. So we can't use what ODOT uses, or is that like a law that so please help me.
So the process of obtaining any treatment chemical is through the Department of Agriculture in their pesticide and herbicide applicators permits. I believe in this case the state, ODOT or other agencies, have a higher level of authority to get their hands on more lethal or different chemicals to treat, whether it's vegetation, animals, whatever. I don't know how difficult it is to obtain the licensing and the certification to get up into that higher tier to maybe get your hands on different treatment chemicals. The zinc phosphide that's commonly used for this, the idea is that when the prairie dogs consume this stuff, it starts to give them a little bit of a bellyache. It causes a reaction in their stomach. Generally, we've been told they like to go underground when they start feeling this. But if you're seeing animals up on top of the surface, that's by far less desirable than if you had some methodology that would keep them down their burrows where it remains unseen. But I'm not exactly sure on the certification and how to get that higher level or higher tier of applicators licensed to be able to get access to those kind of chemicals.
Well, we have a few places, another couple locations I've heard from Lawton Public Schools where they've got some ball fields. That Lawton High School football field is being, they've had some ball fields, they've had their baseball fields where the prairie dogs are now migrating into those fields. And so we're starting to see it move further even to the west. And then there's some people on Ferris Avenue that have across the street that now are having them, really take over in their yards. So we've got to do something. I mean, I think this idea of eradication has got to happen, and leaving them in the certain area, we don't want to do away with all of them, for sure. People want to come here and see the little boogers, but they're obviously they're a nuisance because every time we put wire in the ground, council, they eat it.
Yep.
I mean, I've seen them out there eating wires during holidays. They're eating the wire up, and they're sparking, and they're jumping around, and I've been there. I've seen it. So, you can even put asphalt over them. They'll dig through the asphalt. They are tough. So all I'm saying is that I'm sure we need to do something. We need to do it quickly because I walked that park and they have taken over everywhere.
I've got two questions.
Yes, sir.
And they're kind of the same thing. I like the little things, but I don't like talking about them every year for the last 20 years. And my question is, and I've been told in the past, of course, we've been told a lot, and most of it didn't work. But, and I'm like Councilman Burke, I don't want to see them all gone, but the question comes, how do you contain them? And we've been told in the past that prairie dogs will only dig to where they can see. So if you plant tall, bluegrass or whatever, they won't go beyond that because they think their little world is right here where they're at. Is that the best way to contain them, or?
It is. They are absolutely dependent upon high visibility. They've evolved in a world of predators where they need to be able to see their predators to feel safe. So they actually go outside of those burrows. They'll chew down the vegetation in the vicinity so that it gives them a clear field of view all around them. I don't know whether or not you'd be able to use a bluegrass or another kind of vegetation and have that maintain over time. It would have to be probably more of a shrubbery type vegetation, a little more woody, to be able to sustain long term and where they won't go out there and start gnawing it down. But it's a fine idea to, once you can cull this population, get them contained to some of those restoration areas where there are no kill zones. Maybe on the boundary of that, a good suggestion might be to try and come up with some vegetation to plant around those areas to where they're not comfortable anymore digging and burrowing where the vegetation is too tall for them. Because
we know just culling them and leaving it the way it is doesn't work. We'll just be back here again next year and the year after that and the year after that. And eventually that entire park's just going to drop about 6 feet, I think, from all the holes in it. Okay, that's all I had, but thank you.
I do want to say one thing. It's also a safety issue. We have Holiday in the Park. We have different festivals at night, and where you have to park and where you have to walk in the nighttime, and putting your ankle or your foot in those holes can be very dangerous. So to me, it's also a safety factor.
Well, is there anybody else?
Yeah,
Mr. Hampton?
I do have a question. Your first slide, you got to show this cute little animal. So that's good. That makes my question harder. I mean, are these rodents? I mean, do they fall under the rodent?
Correct.
And because of that, you spoke of the safety issues or for them of that plague. I mean, is that those things can be transferable? And I mean, does the city need to try to maintain some type of program to try to make sure that disease and that sort of thing? I mean, is that something we need to think about?
As far as human health concerns, it's not the plague that would infect and infest a colony is not directly transferable to humans to where it would create human health issues. The greater human health concern is, like Ms. Chapman brought up, the fact that there's holes out there, something for turning ankles, breaking ankles, that sort of thing, which is why a lot of people get rid of these things on private property regarding livestock. Right. It would be a minor concern of mine with the fact that fleas can infest a colony, and now you have a vector of transmission from, fleas getting onto pets that might be walking through the area with owners and that sort of thing. But there's a lot less of a direct vector from prairie dogs to humans. That's okay. Highly unlikely.
Again, then the other thing, as far as private and public land that these are on, and you being from the state, private owners can eradicate these because they're on their private property without any recourse, right?
If a private property owner wants to use any sort of poison, any sort of pesticide to control them, they have to go through the same application permit permit process that the city went through. So a private landowner looking to eradicate prairie dogs to safeguard their livestock, they have to apply to me, to the state, through the same vectors. It's the same way that you all do.
Yeah.
But they also have alternatives where there is a legal season to harvest these things with firearms and other methods where, on private property. I don't know how you could pull that off on city property, but
it's a festival.
Yeah, well, the reason that I'm kind of going on this line of reasoning is what Councilman Burke was talking about. I mean, there are if you start moving towards the west, then they're like all over the place down Ferris, and there's housing areas in there. Of course, the other side of Ferris. So if private homeowners begin to have issues with the road, then it seems like there's kind of a whole different issue that we as a municipality have to deal with. So, I mean, so when we talk about the no-kill zone, you talked about sprinkling something around the area. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, that would be an area of where the pesticide would not be used. So just an avoidance area.
That would you're saying that will stop them from digging more burrows.
It would
contain them in that.
Contain them more or less in that area. Correct.
Okay. Thank you,
Mayor Pro Tem. Staff's fully aware of the issue. We understand that the prairie dogs are migrating now into other areas. Obviously, it's concerning with the neighborhoods right there adjacent. You've got the parks that go over to the school and the football field, all of those things. We have a staff member who has just recently got his certification, who will be able to work through this process, and we'll continue to keep someone certified to do that so that we can do this on an as-needed basis to help control the population moving forward. So.
Well, we thank you very much for bringing this
appreciate
to
your
us.
time.
And,
Thank you.
And you are welcome to take one back with you.
I'm good, thanks.
Mr. Mayor, I have one more question for you, Kirk, before you leave. Is there a structure that can be built to contain them? And one of my constituents, can we build a big wall in the ground? And I know they can dig down about 15 feet.
Right. In theory, it can be done. It's pretty difficult and impractical. We've had private landowners attempt to do that. An example out in Cimarron County, there's a cemetery, and they tried to, I think they went down as far as 6 feet with fencing. They trenched out, dropped fencing 6 feet down to try and prevent them from digging into the cemetery. 6 feet wasn't deep enough. Those things will still get underneath it and get in. I don't know what that maximum depth would be before you could prevent them from digging, but it's deep. It's quite a ways. They'll go down a long ways. Yeah.
Thank you. That brings us to item number 23. Consider approving an ordinance and accompanying resolution pertaining to Chapter 7 business, specifically Article 7-31 parade and assemblies, by amending code to reflect the changes made recently in the fee schedule and establish rules and regulations for event permits and assembly permits, providing for severability and establish an effective date.
Me again. This is in response to just really, the current code just doesn't work. Currently, code states anybody who assembles, which is a person or two persons, requires a permit. It's very impractical. We have evaluated other cities, municipalities on see how they address assembly event type permits, and that's how we came up with the greater than 25 people requiring a permit. So if you just wanted to go out there, less than 25 people, and gather, that's what the park is there for, and have at it. When we have crowds 25 or more, there's just other issues and situations that come with that, as far as just leaving trash and debris behind, or just having a crowd control issue. So the proposed code basically has 3 levels. So the bigger the proposed event, the higher the cost and the higher the review and approval process is. So there's these just tiers. The fees were changed back when all the fee changes happened, and there wasn't a code that exactly matched this, so we're a little behind, but this will match code as far as the fees with the 3 tiers. There also is an assembly permit, which would be an assembly that's allowed by the First Amendment. That is a very simple, easy permit that you could get. I have it proposed as a $10 event. That's something that you could come in and get, that day. So if you wanted to do a peaceful type protest, very little, review on that. That could be done just in the office very quickly. If you wanted to have a family reunion type gathering, that is a completely different review process than, let's say, Holiday in the Park or a parade. And so that's where we get into these tiers. The current code just did not allow for any modification to the code. It was an all or nothing. So even if you wanted to have just a family get together versus a parade, it was the same process. Just didn't make sense. Like I said, we did some research. Charlotte Brown did a great job too getting this started and off the ground, did some amazing research on that. And so this is what we've got for you, and we're open to any questions if you've got them.
Anyone got a question? If not, I would entertain we do the ordinance first?
Motion to approve the ordinance, read the title.
Okay. I would entertain a motion to approve the ordinance, read the title only.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. John?
An ordinance pertaining to parades and public assemblies by amending section 731-131 through 731-131-12 and establishing section 731-131-13 and 731-131-14, Division 731-1, Article 731, Chapter 7, Lawton City Code 2015, by amending the code to reflect the changes made recently in the fee schedule and establishing rules and regulations for event permits and assembly permits, providing for severability and establishing an effective date.
Please vote. I vote yes, and that is 6-0. That ordinance passes. And entertain a motion to approve the resolution. We don't. Okay, we're good. That brings us to item number 24. Consider approving an ordinance amending section 2-3-5-331, Division 2-3-5, Article 2-3, Chapter 2, Lawton City Code 2015, as amended, by clarifying the duties of the Public Library Board and deleting language referencing a previous board, providing for severability, establishing an effective date, and allowing floor amendments. Yes.
Good afternoon. I'm Kathy Hines. I'm the new Deputy Library Director. And we are just asking for approval for the language changes in the ordinance for the library board.
So moved.
I've got a motion and a second. Please vote. Oh, I'm sorry. Read the title only.
An ordinance pertaining to powers and duties of the library board, amending sections 235, 331, Division 235, Article 23, Chapter 2, Lawton City Code 2015, by clarifying duties of the public library board and deleting language referencing a previous board, providing for severability, and establishing an effective date.
Please vote. I vote yes. That motion was approved 6-0.
Thank you.
That brings us to staff reports. Receive an update on the FISTA project. James, you're here someplace. There you are.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. You all are doing well. Things are moving along. I have a few slides for you. There's the controller. I see it. Turn it on. Yeah, it's on now. So any point, anytime you want to stop me, ask questions, please feel free to do so, provided that we get, there we go. So in the Business Integration Center, which was the former IBC Bank space, we have these tenants: Dynetics, Nebian, Oasis, Raytheon, and Verity Aviation, plus the University of Oklahoma and Oklahoma State University. With that, the intent was, and the signed document we had with them is that, so you can hear me, sorry, I'm going to use my coach's voice. The idea is that they're in the FISTA with the BIC with the understanding that they intend to go into the FISTA once it's completed. So follow on to that, with the FISTA 1, which is the former Sears building, now negotiating 8 long-term contracts. When I say long-term contracts, I'm saying at a minimum 5 years. So that's the intent with that. And 2 academic institutions, OU and OSU. The FISTA construction update, these are the old slides. Okay. As of yesterday, we are at 64% in the completion rate. Project's on schedule. The FISTA sign's going up. You see that when you drive by. That is the front sign. That's what the community will see with the FISTA in front of it. The high security fence is almost complete. With that, it goes around from where the flagpole is all the way around to the southeast corner. 2 mechanical gates, 2 swing gates. Swing gates are there because of fire hydrants for the fire department to access. We have ongoing meetings with Fort Sill organizations that are coming to the FISTA for tour, to comment, to see what we've got. We do those on a regular basis. They're coming to us. Comments have been extremely positive, exciting with regards to this facility. Upcoming dates: Army Futures Command CFT's meetings are ongoing. With that and understanding, as we have done with previous meeting to Army Futures Command in Austin, is discussing with them the concept and the idea of the FISTA and what it brings in support to the CFTs. But also now we have the Joint Counter UAS Schoolhouse that's moving here next year from Yuma, Arizona. That once it's stood up here, it will become the Joint Counter UAS University. September, we've had congressional visits. Tom Cole was here last week. He had a chance to see the progress and his support that we have. Industry visits, ongoing. Other organizations that are looking at interest in coming to the FISTA. We have those at least twice a month. We will have new visitors come in, others that we follow up with. October 10 through 12 is the AUSA National Conference and Expo. This is the opportunity to go to the PAC for the Army, where this is the show of shows that takes place in Washington, D.C. We'll have community leaders, Fort Sill leaders will be there. Even Congressman Cole, his new field rep, is going to be with us in the FISTA. So we have the opportunities to engage further, meet with them, discuss about the concept of the FISTA, ideas, answers questions, and set up visits as we did last year. October 27th is an important event here in town. For that, the cross-functional team and the Fire Center of Excellence reception, followed by the traditional AUSA Care Providers Banquet. That is where we honor local organizations that go above and beyond to support the Army families. This year, we are a special guest that it appears right now the intent is for the Chief of Staff of the Army to be here to honor retiring Senator Jim Inhofe. That would be very important for us. Congressman Cole extended that invitation to him. He's making every effort to make that happen. November 30, completion of Phase 1. That is the 31,000 square feet within the former Sears building to be completed December. Tenants start under contract, start moving in. Right now, I have one contract with the attorney that I will be providing notification here shortly, others to follow. STEM Consortium. This is a local effort by which to identify and develop STEM activities in the plaza. This is being done through the National Math and Science Initiative. That is a Department of Defense organization that provides funding to schools. Eisenhower High School, 5 years ago, was identified as the NIMSY High School of the Year, competing with other schools across the country. The NIMSY Teacher of the Year still teaches at Eisenhower High School. This year, and hopefully for follow-on years, from what we understand from NIMSY, all 3 high schools in Lawton Public Schools will be identified through this program. 3 universities are involved with that: Oklahoma State, University of Oklahoma, and Cameron. Great Plains. Lawton Public Schools hosts the consortium until we get other things in place with the FISTA. Area schools are invited. We have active involvement from defense contractors. There right now for the STEM Consortium, a defense contractor is the chair for the STEM Consortium. Right now it is Dynetics. We hope to see another defense contractor pick that up later. The reason why I have interns listed there is that this summer we had 7 Cameron interns working in the BIC with Dynetics and Raytheon. Also innovators with new technologies to become part of the consortium. Efforts are underway right now to establish a STEM lab, an engineering makerspace, and an incubator in the plaza that will incorporate matters and support to grades K through 12, collegiate level development makerspace, and a small business incubator where we can find those young girls and boys that are creating technologies that they want to pursue, that we can do that in the incubator. We're pursuing funding for the STEM lab now through various sources, those state and federal. Cameron University got an NSF grant. We now have 100 gig fiber that's in Central Plaza. And then OSU, through their drone program, received a $250,000 grant from McMahon Foundation to conduct STEM activities, and 1 workshop this year and 1 next year. Pending questions, that is my presentation. I look forward to coming back, and also with any of your gatherings within your wards. If you have interest for me to come and speak to those groups, I will definitely do that. Thank you for all your involvement. Thank you for your questions and continued participation. Go FISTA.
I just want to say, James, I think we all wondered how long it would take us to get to this point. I had black hair when this all started, just so you know. But be honest with you, I think most citizens really had concerns in the beginning that this would work. And thank goodness we had leaders here on this council and leadership throughout our community that believed that Fort Sill deserved this and it earned this, and this is our future. And this is just the beginning. So congratulations to everybody on the FISTA and everybody up here. You stood with us through the hard times, and it meant a lot. So keep going, James.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate the effort from the local media and their means to try to educate and inform, because that's been one of the largest challenges, is trying to keep the positive rolling so that people understand what's actually taking place.
Right.
And with this type of effort. So anytime you all want to come down and visit, please let me know.
Thank you.
Thank you again for your support.
Well, I do have a comment of clarification for the citizens of Lawton. So there was kind of a twofold thing that you were speaking about. We are doing the FISTA part, but also FISTA is integrating itself within our community to begin to build a population of young people that can feed into this technological developments that are going on, and thus building and taking our city and building another facet into it as far as in the future and the workforce.
The important facet of the STEM Lab Makerspace Incubator is that will guide us in workforce development, also allow us to identify the underserved population in this community through the schools that need a hand up, not a handout, and also provide the opportunity for project-based learning that then they will develop the skills necessary to survive in our world today. So when we say a STEM lab and thinking about our workforce, it's not just high-tech jobs, but also where they can be successful within their own interest areas. So that's going to be very key to this. The information I've received and the efforts that we're going, and Councilwoman Johnson is very much interested in helping the STEM effort, as you all are, but wherever we can do that, that will be our future workforce. Yes, sir.
Thank you, James. Appreciate it.
Thank you all very much.
Council, before as we head to executive session, I want to move item number 28 up to the top of our executive session, and I would entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session.
So moved.
Motion and a second. Call the roll.
Fortenbaugh. Warren.
Yes.
Hankins. Chapman. Burke. Hampton.
Yes.
Yeah, there better be some food left.
We saved it all. It smelled really good.